Well, good morning. Pastor Mike here again. It's May the 19th. We're back in Acts. Paul is in Athens now, and so we'll begin reading Acts 17:32 through 34. Now, when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, but others said, "We will hear you again about this." So Paul went out from their midst. But some men joined him and believed, among whom also were Dionysius the Areophagite and a woman named Damaris and others with them. Paul has not done very well in the terms of there was no church planted that we know of, or letter epistle written to the Athenians. So it would seem that Paul was less successful in Athens than the other places that he visited on his second missionary journey, as we're still there. It was typical of the Athenians that all they wanted to do was talk. They didn't want action. They didn't really particularly even want particular conclusions. They really just wanted mental exercise, mental acrobatics. They just enjoyed arguing and bantering about ideas. There were basically three reactions to this, to the people that Paul encountered. Some mocked. There were scoffers. There were people that just laughed. They were amused by this strange Jew from Tarsus that was so passionate talking about the resurrection. It's possible to make light of life, laugh it off. But those who do so often end up being in very tragic circumstances. The other idea, or the other reaction, second reaction, is some put off their decision. The most dangerous thing is when a person realizes how easy it is to put off to tomorrow, to just talk about tomorrow. I'll get around to it. My dad, this kind of is a personal thing, but as far as we know, my dad wasn't a believer. And I remember him telling the pastor at a church we were growing up at that, I'll get to church when my career gets a little less busy and I'll settle down and I'll get involved. And so tomorrow never happened. So it's a very dangerous thing. Some believed. Now the wise know that only the fool will reject God's offer. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. But there are two converts that are specifically named. There is Dionysius, the Areophagite. Now, Paul was in the Areopagus, which the Areopagus, we studied this in Awana with the Journey students, the high school group. The Areopagus, about several hundred years before Christ, was set up to be about no more than 30 people who were advisors to the king. Now, this group kind of fell out of prominence, and at one point they became the people that heard homicide cases. So they were kind of like our Supreme Court. So we know that Dionysius was a influential Greek aristocrat, and we kind of have a parallel in the New Testament, in the Gospels. We know about in John 3 how Nicodemus came to Jesus at night, and we know that from other places that Nicodemus became a believer, but he was a Jewish teacher of Israel, and then so there are There were some Greeks, influential Greeks, that believed. Now the other one is Damaris, and we know that the position of women in Athens was very restrictive. She probably, well, no respectable woman would really ever appear in the market square. But so we probably understand that Damaris turned from a way of shame to a way of life that was good. And we see here in Christianity that we see how impactful the gospel was, how it influenced all classes of men and women. It impacted them for the good. And we see a parallel with Damaris also in John 4, the Samaritan woman of the well, and we see how her life became better through the good news. And so for us, we're going to encounter people who are scoffers. We're going to encounter people that are procrastinators. And sometimes we're going to encounter those who actually accept the gospel and follow it. Those are God's elect. That's all I have for now.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.